Daniel Cormier was one of the most respected fighters in UFC history, but even DC had his breaking points.
Not only have you crossed the line, you've completely put yourself in...
Over the years, there were a few fighters who really got under his skin, guys he didn't just want to beat. He wanted to shut up.
So he won't have a chance. I'm just going to go across the cage and I'm just going to beat him up.
From bitter rivalries to deep personal grudges, these were the top 4 UFC fighters Daniel Cormier absolutely couldn't stand. Starting at number 4, we have Stipe Miocic. It all started in 2018, when Cormier, already the UFC light heavyweight champion, moved up to challenge Miocic for the heavyweight belt. At that time, Miocic had already defended his title more times than any other UFC heavyweight in history, and he felt he wasn't getting the respect he deserved. So when Cormier got the opportunity to jump the line and fight him, Miocic didn't exactly love the idea, but he took the fight anyway. Their first fight happened at UFC 226. Leading up to it, there wasn't a lot of trash talk. When Miocic was asked about how he felt about going into the octagon against Cormier, this was what he had to say.
Daniel's an amazing fighter. He's fought with the best guys in the world, you know.
Cormier also had some nice things to say about Stipe.
This guy's a great champion. He's ruled this division.
The feeling appeared mutual, with both men focused on the historic nature of the champion versus champion clash. However, that respectful tone shifted dramatically once they entered the octagon. In the first round of their encounter, Cormier landed a significant eye poke on Miocic. Moments later, Cormier shocked the world by knocking out the durable Miocic in the first round, clinching his second title. But what really upset Miocic was what happened after the fight. Instead of showing sportsmanship or asking for a rematch, Cormier called out Brock Lesnar, who wasn't even an active fighter at the time.
There, I was like, Brock Lesnar, get in here.
Lesnar came into the cage, shoved Cormier, and the two put on a WWE-style show to hype up a potential money fight.
Belt wrapped on waist, you're gonna hear and new. Now I'm gonna get back what's mine.
Miocic felt completely disrespected. He had just lost his belt, and instead of being given the chance to earn it back, the attention went straight to a fake rivalry with a guy who hadn't fought in years. Miocic waited and waited. He turned down other fights and kept asking for a rematch. Cormier, meanwhile, fought Derek Lewis and defended his belt, but still didn't agree to fight Stipe right away. That made things worse. Miocic didn't say much publicly, but when he did, he made it clear he felt overlooked and disrespected. Cormier, on the other hand, said Miocic was acting like a baby and didn't deserve a rematch right away. Then, in May of 2019, Miocic got what he wanted. It was officially announced that he would get his rematch against Cormier at UFC 241 on August 17, 2019. This time, Miocic was ready to take back what he felt was his. This time, the buildup was more heated. Cormier was confident and didn't hide his feelings. He said he didn't care if Miocic was angry and told him to either fight or stay quiet. Miocic didn't get into much trash talk, but his attitude had changed.
I just don't think he's good enough to beat me.
He wasn't the quiet, humble champion anymore. He was focused, serious, and looking for payback. However, Cormier believed that Miocic was just good enough to beat him. Their rematch at UFC 241 was a brutal back-and-forth fight. Both landed eye pokes, but Cormier's eye pokes stood out and stirred more controversy. In round 4, Miocic landed a hard shot to the body, followed by punches to the head, and knocked Cormier out, taking back his belt and getting his revenge. With the score 1-1, the trilogy fight at UFC 252 was set as Cormier's retirement bout and a battle for heavyweight greatness. Cormier's desire was to bow out of the sport as a heavyweight champion. When they finally met in the octagon for the last time, it was another war. In round 3, Miocic poked Cormier in the eye, and the fight was briefly paused, but the damage was done.
Championship and winning a heavyweight championship.
Cormier fought the remainder of the contest with severely compromised vision. In the end, Miocic won by unanimous decision and kept his belt, while Cormier retired. Another fighter Daniel Cormier hated the most was Frank Mir. Daniel Cormier's feud with Frank Mir wasn't as intense or long-lasting as his rivalries with JonJones or Stipe Miocic, but it still had real tension. It started back when Cormier was the undefeated Strikeforce heavyweight Grand Prix champion. He was set to face Mir, a former UFC champ, in late 2012, but Mir pulled out due to injury. That didn't sit well with Cormier, who took it personally. When Strikeforce shut down and Cormier joined the UFC, he didn't forget. After winning his final Strikeforce fight, he grabbed the mic and called out one name, Frank Mir. He still wanted that fight, and he made sure everyone knew it. The UFC obliged, and the matchup was set for UFC on Fox 7 in April 2013.
Happened, and we're supposed to fight in Oklahoma, so he owes it to me.
The buildup was filled with a steady stream of verbal jabs, primarily from Cormier. He repeatedly painted Mir as a front-runner, a fighter who performed well when things were going his way but would wilt under the kind of relentless pressure he intended to bring. In an interview with MMA Fighting, Cormier didn't hold back his assessment.
As though he's smug?
Very smug.
Mir mostly stayed calm and didn't take Cormier's trash talk seriously. Once the fight started, Cormier backed up his words. He shut down Mir's submission game by holding him against the fence and using his wrestling to control all 3 rounds. It wasn't the most exciting fight, but Cormier won by unanimous decision. For a while, it seemed like the feud was over, but in 2017, things flared up again.
It's unacceptable to cry.
After Cormier's emotional interview following his loss to JonJones, Mir criticized him on his podcast, saying it wasn't acceptable for a man to cry after getting beaten. Cormier viewed this comment as a profound disrespect. He took to Twitter with a direct threat. Frank Mir, I'm going to beat your ass. I've always felt you were a piece of *T, and you've confirmed it. The tweet revealed that the underlying dislike had never truly disappeared, proving that some feuds in the world of fighting don't always end when the final bell rings. Number 2 on the Daniel Cormier hate list was Patrick Durkin Cummins. The story between Daniel Cormier and Patrick Durkin Cummins began with a bit of bad luck. Cormier was set to make his light heavyweight debut against former champ Rashad Evans, but just 10 days before the fight, Evans pulled out with a leg injury. The UFC quickly looked for a replacement, and out of nowhere came Patrick Cummins. He wasn't well known in MMA, but in wrestling circles, he was a respected 2-time All-American and a former training partner of Cormier at the Olympic Training Center. To hype the fight and grab attention, Cummins shared a bold story. He told UFC President DanaWhite and the media that during their grueling wrestling sessions,
and that he, quote-unquote, broke him.
He had pushed Cormier so hard that he broke him, making the future champion cry. DanaWhite said that Cummins claimed he had broken Cormier during their training sessions. On the surface, it sounded like typical pre-fight trash talk.
I know all Daniel's weaknesses. I know that I can push him and he will break.
But the reality of what happened and the timing of it made the comments a deeply cruel and personal blow. When Cormier heard what Cummins had said, he was filled with a cold rage. He immediately went public to provide the heartbreaking context that Cummins had conveniently omitted.
Crossed the line, you've completely put yourself in my crosshair.
The incident Cummins was referring to had occurred in 2004, just 1 year after Cormier's 3-month-old daughter, Kaden, was tragically killed in a car accident. He was still consumed by grief and emotional turmoil, and the stress of training for the Olympics was immense. However, Cummins still claimed he knew how to break Cormier, saying Cormier's biggest weakness was actually his mental strength. Cormier wasn't happy about this at all. He saw it as Cummins making a public mockery of his pain. The feud escalated at the weigh-ins. When the two men came face to face, there was no sportsmanship. Cormier, stone-faced and intense, pushed Cummins backward across the stage, sending a clear message that their fight would be more than just a competition. It would be a punishment. When the cage door locked, the retribution was swift and violent. Cormier stalked Cummins from the opening bell, showing no respect for his opponent. He clipped Cummins with a punch that wobbled him and then swarmed him with a relentless barrage of strikes, forcing the referee to stop the fight in just 79 seconds. Now, let's talk about the fighter Daniel Cormier hated the most, JonJones. Daniel Cormier versus JonJones is one of the most intense rivalries in combat sports history. It all started backstage at UFC 121 in 2010. Jones, a rising star at the time, walked up to Cormier, who was there supporting his teammate Cain Velasquez. With a smile, Jones said, "I heard you're a wrestler. I bet I could take you down."
A guy who really wants to be famous. I don't think he wants to work hard.
Jones later claimed it was just a playful comment, but Cormier didn't see it that way. As a 2-time Olympian, He felt disrespected, like Jones was either pretending not to know who he was or was arrogant enough to challenge him right away.
You know, you look like you can wrestle.
By 2013, Cormier publicly called Jones out, saying he wanted to fight him. But Jones didn't take him seriously and dismissed it in interviews, saying Cormier just wanted fame and wasn't on his level. Cormier finally got his chance when Alexander Gustafsson pulled out of UFC 178 in July 2014 with a knee injury. The UFC quickly slotted Cormier in as Jones's next opponent, and that's when things really exploded. At a press event for UFC 178 in August 2014, the two men engaged in a now infamous brawl on stage. During their stare-down, Jones pressed his forehead against Cormier's, and Cormier responded by shoving him by the throat. Jones retaliated by throwing a punch, and the stage erupted into chaos as both teams and security rushed to separate them. Shortly after the brawl, during a promotional interview, a hot mic incident captured the true depth of their hatred when they believed they were off air. Jones even went as far as saying he was going to kill Cormier.
I'm going to make him my wife.
Their first fight finally took place at UFC 182 in January 2015. After 5 grueling rounds, Jones won a clear, unanimous decision, famously taunting Cormier with a "suck it" gesture after the final bell. It was Cormier's first professional loss, a bitter pill made worse by the man who delivered it.
All this crap he talks, it motivated me.
The rivalry then took a series of dramatic turns, mostly due to Jones's life outside the cage. In April 2015, Jones was involved in a felony hit-and-run incident involving a pregnant woman and was stripped of his title by the UFC. In his absence, Cormier won the vacant championship by submitting Anthony "Rumble" Johnson, finally achieving his goal of becoming UFC champion, but with the shadow of Jones looming over him.
Who me? I'm getting money and championship belts.
They would finally meet again at UFC 214 in July 2017. The buildup was as vitriolic as ever, with press conferences filled with insults about each other's character, family, and careers.
Stop looking for them to save you. They can't save you.
Cormier even went as far as saying that he is willing to die to beat Jones. In the octagon, the fight was competitive until the 3rd round, when Jones landed a vicious head kick that rocked Cormier, leading to a TKO victory for Jones. In the aftermath, a concussed and emotionally shattered Cormier wept in the octagon. But the story took its most shocking twist a few weeks later. It was revealed that Jones had failed another drug test, this time for an anabolic steroid, in relation to the UFC 214 fight. The result was overturned to a no contest, and Cormier was reinstated as the light heavyweight champion. For Cormier and his fans, it was a vindication, proof that Jones's victories were illegitimate. For Jones, it was another dark mark on his already controversial legacy.
If you win both fights, there is no rivalry, so...
Even after Cormier moved up to become the heavyweight champion and eventually retired, the war of words never truly ceased. They continued to trade barbs on social media and in interviews, with Jones often mocking Cormier's commentary career and Cormier questioning the legitimacy of Jones's entire body of work. Their feud remains a defining part of both men's careers, a complex and ugly saga of what was, what could have been, and what will forever be one of the most personal and iconic rivalries in the history of sports.